Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Sean Zerbis, the Director of BIM Development here at CTC, and today we are going to go over the first in a series of HIVE analytics. We're going to be talking about how to deal with the analytics within HIVE, the CMS, the PAL, and a bunch of other portions of the HIVE product itself. And today we're going to just get started with this advanced analytics. As always, our webinars are of course recorded. Also, as always, when you're here live at the webinar, you get to throw questions into the questions panel, and I try to answer them live while we are going through the actual topic itself. And also, we'll have a huge Q&A session at the end. So, what is it that we're going to cover today? Well, I mean, right now, we're all fairly rapidly learning that data pretty much rules the world. And knowing what this information is, knowing how to effectively use data, and understand what it all means, that's really important these days. So we want to make sure that you understand what data gets captured within the HIVE side so that when you go looking for answers, you can understand how to dig up those answers out of the data that's being captured. So we're going to kind of dig deep in this whole series about looking at this data, and today we're going to go into the preliminary portion of the analytics that's available within HIVE to help you understand a bit more about how those analytics can work for you as BIM managers and as users to be able to leverage this data a bit more. So today we're going to understand a little bit about the power of HIVE's analytics. We're going to take a look at a report that's already been generated. As we go through the day today, through this little webinar, I'm going to be showing you exactly how to build up that report. In fact, we have a template that you can just use directly. I'll show you where to get that from. I do want you to understand the metrics that are being tracked by HIVE and how to understand every single point of those metrics. I'll show you that in that report as well. I want to show you how you can gain access to that raw HIVE data so that you can write whatever reports you want beyond even what we provide in our template. And then we are going to actually do it. We're going to generate that report live here in the webinar so that you can better understand all of your HIVE end user experiences within the actual kind of analytics environment. So let's dig in right now live because I'm not big on PowerPoint. So we're going to just kind of start to take a look and help you understand some of the power of these analytics kind of directly here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a Microsoft Power BI report across, a little test report, and we're going to end up building this report throughout the day. So in this case, this is Microsoft Power BI. If I was to collapse a bunch of information here, you'd see in the middle is sort of a big report of some sort. Now, in this case, this is just a bunch of labels that hyperlink me to different tabs down here at the bottom. It's kind of a home splash page. But let's start digging in just a little bit to this information. If I go here to my enterprise users, for example, if I want to know more about the users themselves, live inside of the HIVE portal, you can know some of this stuff, but sometimes it's easier if you can just filter for some of this. So like maybe I want to know all of my users who are in the Bloomington office. In Power BI, I can simply click on Bloomington and understand how they're broken apart by department down here, how many total users I have, who they are, and some of their information. Maybe I wanted to know about some of the disabled users, those not disabled physically, but like disabled in the system so that they can't actually access it, right? So I can start to filter for them as well if I really wanted to. But with this, I get a better picture of what's going on. If I'm leveraging the project activity data, I can understand a bit about the add-ins that are installed on different workstations. So if I wanted to know on this particular workstation from the last use from a specific Revit version, what was the data that was captured for that versus the other Revit version? Which tools, for example, are installed? And I can see what those tools are, and potentially even, depending on what I'm showing in my report, what version of those tools. I can see Revit versions in use by project collection. So if I know a specific project and I know what perhaps models they're working with, I can understand exactly what Revit builds are at play on that particular project, and we can dig into that later. There's other just Revit versions in general on specific computers. You know, Which computers have Revit versions build 2019? Which ones are using Revit 2020, right? And I can start to understand this and what sessions they're in and what build number even they're specifically on. So I can understand data like that. With the CMS itself, I can understand things like how many total libraries, tags, content, favorites I've got. I can understand how and when people are searching, potentially even what they're searching on specific days and times. So I can see what all that information kind of happens to be here. How often they're searching and dropping information, or how often they're using saved versus manual searches. I can see when people have searches with no results. So they've run a search, what's the criteria? They had filters on, they were looking in libraries, they were using a specific Revit category, a specific kind of search here, and nothing came up. The result was 0. So I can understand that very quickly. I can even understand by user exactly which searches had 0 results. In this case, I, Sean Zerbis, had 399 individual searches that came up with nothing. Joe had 75, and I can see exactly, pretty much what they were searching for to get that kind of result. I can understand where my content is used and what kind of tagging is applied and where. If I'm looking at the project data, what kind of project balances I have and deadlines, and project by project, what my model sizes are and how much time has been spent in those models. There's all kinds of data. And the nice thing about all of this is that every piece of this is customizable by you. You can start to dig in deep and understand more model by model by model. And there's plenty more tabs inside of here that have a lot of data. How are models performing? Give me some detail about that performance. PAL, user-specific summary, where are specific users spending their time in which models? What kind of views and how much time are they spending in specific views, and how many actions are taken in those views? Are they just sitting on it doing nothing, or are they actually doing work in a particular view, right? And how much work? Give me reports on warnings, give me project data, warning summary, and then there's also just a template slide over here. There's all kinds of information, and certainly the sky is the limit for you to be able to do even more. So there's a lot of power here with the analytics themselves. So hopefully you understand a little bit about why these analytics can be meaningful. Now, it's just a quick little run through here, and there's certainly a lot of other areas where you can dig even deeper. And to know that, let's take a look at what are the metrics that we're actually going after. What is the data that's being collected? And so to understand this, I want to jump back into this Power BI file. I'm just going to jump back to the Home tab here so we can take a look at some of the tab names in sort of a big collection to give you an idea of what's going on. So pretty much every piece of data that you put into the HIVE portal is able to be extracted for searching. So let's give some examples here. If I jump into the HIVE portal myself, let me go to the official HIVE portal right here. I'm signed in as my Express Tools account, the same data that we're looking at in that Power BI report. And if we go here to the CMS, take a look here, the libraries that you've created, that's data. How much content is in those libraries is also data. What versions of that content is information. So that's all being categorized for you. The tags themselves that you're using and what they're associated to, that's information that you can get reports on. There's a bunch of project-based data here as well, and we have this projects portion of the portal that allows you to create logical project numbers, that allows you to take the tracked paths of models and map them to specific projects. So here in this case, I've got explicit discrete file paths. They're mapped to a particular project number. I also have a number of unmapped, uncategorized project paths here. And in future webinars, we'll be talking more about project administration, but I can take these paths and associate them to a logical, organized project, which helps me better understand the data. I don't have to do this, but it certainly makes it easier to parse through the information when I have them grouped into logical projects. And that's how my reports are set up. But again, you don't have to do that. It all depends on how you want to slice your data. The request information is available in reports. The user and group data here is available in reports. So the actual usernames and emails, which office you associate them to, the departments, the types of groups they're in, the types of rights they have. All of that information is tracked in the system, of course, so that it can be used for giving them access to information. But it's also useful with the actual reporting side, because that can all be extracted for reporting. So you can understand a bit more about the specific data within the Microsoft Power BI environment here. If you go into the template, we've got every piece of data pulled in as a unique collection of information. So if I pull out, for example, the content collection right here, or the content file collection, the individual discrete files, it'll tell you when it was added, who it was added by. It'll tell you things like when the file itself was created or last modified. Tells you the name of the individual file, its file size and version, Revit version if it's Revit content, or AutoCAD version if it's AutoCAD. It has a unique ID that associates it to the content in that collection above. Knows if it's a Revit central file or not, if it's a container file or not. Knows what its source paths were. It knows all kinds of information here so that you can come back and ask questions of that individual content, either the content collection itself, the individual files. If I went down to the library, what library each of those pieces of content is associated to, if it's ever been loaded and where and by whom, if it's been tagged and what those tags are. All of this information here is available to you, and certainly the tabs that I have here and the little example reports that I have don't encompass everything that you have access to. That's for you to kind of figure out. But you can certainly begin to dig in and understand what that information is. You can see for the CMS, it's organized in CMS prefixes. For general sort of user and group organization, it's organized right here. And then for the project activity data, that's all in the PAL tables down here. And so all this information is available, and in a lot of cases, already interlinked. So there's a lot of metrics that are available here for you to understand what's going on. So let's figure out how you can gain access to this data. I want to show you exactly how you can get what I have. In fact, I'm going to step through directly and get all of these files. And then once I get all the files, we're going to hook them up so that it works well within your environment. And you can follow along step by step with exactly what I'm doing here. That's the intent today. So how do you gain access? Well, from that portal again, if you are an admin of any kind, you most likely will have access to this dashboard portion over here to the far left. Now you can get access to the last 30 days of information here, right here. It's similar reports. There's an enterprise set of level reports. There's project-specific reports. There's CMS reports. There's a lot of data that's here that you can pull in directly from the portal. But here's the deal. You can't customize these reports, and it's just the last 30 days. If you want more, if you want to dig deeper, then what I recommend you do is go to the downloads portion. And there are 4 separate downloads here, 3 that you'll get continually and 1 that you'll start with. So first off is this Power BI template right here. I'm going to download that directly right now. You can also go in here and request the HIVE CMS data, the PAL data, and the users and groups data, the 3 different collections of info that are going to be able to be used to build up this report. And you simply hit the email button for each one of these. And what it will do in the back end is prepare those reports for you. It'll extract the data, it will get it, and then after it gets the data, it will send you an email with a download link using whichever account it is you're currently signed in as. So this has to, of course, be a real email account that you can actually get emails at. Otherwise, it won't let you get this data because it comes to email. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these right now. Email this. It's going to pop up with a message that says it's going to send it to me shortly. Same thing here. The PAL data, same thing here for the HIVE user and group data. And it's going to tell me that those are going to be delivered to my inbox. Now, it can take a little bit of time here and there. Sometimes it takes, if you have a lot of data inside of here, it might take 5-10 minutes for it to prepare the file and send it to you. But once it does send it to you, you'll be able to download that information. And so what I'm going to do, I think mine have already come through here. So I'm going to go ahead and get these files. I'm going to click download on my HIVE CMS data here. It's going to use my default browser. And in this case, what I want to do is make sure that I'm putting this into a specific folder. And you'll want to do the exact same thing. Now, in my case, I throw it directly in my downloads directory since that's where my web browser typically wants to go anyway. And what I'm going to do is make a new subfolder here. I'm going to call this out as HIVE Reports in my downloads folder. You might choose a different directory, and that's fine. And I'm going to call this webinar. Okay, Hive Reports webinar. I'm going to open up that folder and I'm going to save this file directly into this folder. In the future, when I ask for it again, I'm going to make sure that I overwrite the file that's already there. Since I'm here in the process of renaming this file or choosing a name, by the way, don't change the name. You don't want to do that. You want to leave it exactly as you get it from the download. I'm going to copy this little sort of string of characters, this what looks like garbage here. You need this. This is actually your organization ID. I'm going to copy this because I'm going to use this in a moment within the Power BI file. I'll show you where that is, but I'm going to cheat by copying this right now. And I'm going to save this directly into my Hive Reports webinar folder. So it's going to download that. Now, I got two other emails while I was doing this. One is for my accounts here, and I'm going to go ahead and get this for my users and groups data. Click to download that and save that in that same exact folder. It has a slightly different name, Hive Users and Groups, with that same organization ID on it. Save that here. And then I think I also, yep, I did get my PAL data here, which is fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and download that from my email as well. And that's going to drop here in the same folder with the PAL BI, same organization ID, save that. And I'm off and running. Now, the next time I want to refresh this data, maybe next week, maybe next month, when I want to ask the questions again, I'm going to go ahead and just jump back into this page and re-click those three email buttons, wait for it to give me the data extraction, and then throw them in that same folder. Okay, so now that I have that information all downloaded, I also need to get this Power BI file opened up. So I'm going to go ahead and show in folder where that is. Oh, that's out here in my normal downloads folder, but I'm going to throw that file directly into my webinar folder right here. Okay, now this is a Microsoft Power BI file. You need Microsoft Power BI to work with this template. Now, if you've got a different analytics tool, fantastic, go for it. You want to use Tableau, you want to use Google Analytics, go for it. You can use all these files with those other analytics systems as well. We just chose Microsoft Power BI because early on, when you're in your sort of early days of analytics, and even as you progress a bit, Power BI is a pretty powerful tool, and you can start with it for free on the desktop version. So you can do some of what everything I'm going to be doing today, you can do with the desktop version of the Microsoft Power BI tool. So I encourage you to take a look at it. But you are going to need to install that and learn a bit about it so you can begin to leverage this toolkit. So how do you get it? Because you can't open this up without getting Power BI. Well, the way that you get Microsoft Power BI is you go to the web browser up here and you just search Microsoft Power, if I could type Power BI, download, right there, Power BI download. And it's going to bring me to the Microsoft Power BI reports here. Actually, there's one right down here, downloads Microsoft Power BI. That's where I want to go for this. This is going to bring me to the page that I actually already have up right there. But what you can do is just simply download it right from here. You may have to create a quick Microsoft account if you don't already have one, but you can use this tool for free early on. Okay, there's other advanced download options as well where you can download different kinds of files and get it outside of the store. This is actually the way that I went because I didn't feel like making a Microsoft account for this to work. So I went this way, advanced download options, and then I found the English download right here, and it just gave me that file. Now, I'm not going to click this because I don't want to wait for that to actually download, but you can go ahead and download it and then install it on your computer, assuming you have installation rights, and then you'll be able to leverage the Microsoft Power BI here. So that's how I got there. I searched Microsoft Power BI downloads. I went to the other options, and I just went directly downloaded the executable file. All right. Now that I have Microsoft Power BI installed, I should be able to open up this Power BI file right here, which you're probably going to want to rename for your own company. So maybe I steal the name here of the Hive webinar folder right there. Let me just rename this guy, paste, and I'm going to get rid of all those slashes right there that don't need to be there. And Hive Reports webinar, and maybe I put a date on this, or yeah, I'll just go 2206. What is it today? 29? Yeah, 29. So I'm just going to put that there as my file name. Doesn't really matter. That's less relevant. I just like having a specific name so I know kind of when I started this, when I established it. So I'm going to open this up in Microsoft Power BI. Give it a second. Microsoft Power BI is a little bit slow to open, kind of like Microsoft Word is sometimes. And in here, it's going to ask me to sign into an account, which I'm just going to close because I don't have an account that I want to sign into for this example. And I don't have to. It still opens up that Microsoft Power BI file. It's on my other monitor right now. I'm trying to drag it across. Come on, here we go. There we go. Drag it across, okay? So that Microsoft Power BI file opened. I didn't sign into any account. I don't need one. This file is still going to work. What I can't do is share it with a bunch of other people. Like I can't publish it without an account. So that requires an online user login. And I don't need to publish it. I just want it for my own purposes here. So let's take a look at what you need to do to be able to get the data to show up inside of here. You can see the whole structure is already set up, but right now you can't refresh this with your data just yet. You need to actually hook it into your data, to your files that you just downloaded at the path you downloaded. You have to tell it where all that is. Now we've done most of the footwork for you. You just have to go through these next little 2 steps. I'm going to drop down this transform data option right here. So from the home tab, on the queries grouping, I'm going to drop down transform data, and I want to edit the parameters of this file. There's 2 parameters that need to be edited, okay? Notice here in the data, there's 2 things here. There's a user path right there, and there's an organization ID, which is all zeroed out right now. You need to replace both of those with your path and your organization ID, that one that I told you to copy a moment ago, which I kind of uncopied here. Let's go grab this real quick and re-steal this organization ID off of this file. Copy that. And I'm going to paste that here into the organization ID right there. It's this string of like 25 characters. The other thing that I need to know is tell it where the data files are located. And notice here, there's an important thing. There's actually even an info note right there. It says location of linked spreadsheet files note. The trailing backslash is required. I always forget this, and I always forget to kind of leave that trailing backslash right there. I'm going to try to not forget that right now since I just mentioned it to you here, but I'm going to go steal the path where I had saved each of those Excel files at. They all need to be in the same directory for this to work. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to paste it right here, leaving that trailing backslash, and I'm going to click OK. Now, when I do that, I need to apply my changes, and when I hit apply, it's going to automatically do a refresh right here. So I'm going to hit apply. It's going to think about it. It's going to reload, refresh all of my data that I just downloaded, creating all those connections, getting all the information. In my case, I don't have a whole ton of data, so it happens fairly quickly. You can see it's going through here and pulling the data directly in. Got a few thousand rows worth of information. And now, of course, I want to save this. So I don't have to do that particular transform data step again. All I have to do from now on is get the newest data and then refresh that data when I want to update my report. So I'm just going to save this, and now I'm off and running. So let me give one example of something that I did in my other report that you might want to do in your report. I'm going to show you just a little bit about how to work with Microsoft Power BI. So I went here to my enterprise users, and you'll notice here in my report that I have 45 users, and some of these were old testing users that got added, like this testing user here, and I want to get them out of the list. I don't want to see them in my list anymore if they're not actually active users. So what I did here on this report is I clicked into no space, just in the background here. Nothing is selected. See, if I select something, then my next step won't work as well. So I'm going to click to nothing. I've deselected everything. I'm going to go over here to the visualizations that are available, and I'm going to choose this one called a slicer. So these are all just different styles of graphs and ways of showing and trimming data down. And the one that I want to use here is the one called the slicer. This is sort of a drop-down selection list or checkbox list. I'm just going to click on this, and it's going to throw it out here onto my page someplace. Now, cool feature here about how Power BI works, it likes to keep things aligned. And so I can drag stuff around, and it gives me sort of alignment lines, similar to how Revit works even. Within this, what I want to do is populate this visual with some data. Now, this information on this page is pretty much entirely coming from the HIVE users collection right here. And I can know that by simply clicking on one of these visuals out here. You'll actually see in the fields where a lot of the data is coming from. It has a little yellow check mark right there saying a lot of the data or all the data is coming from here. And if I expand out HIVE users, I can even see within this particular graph what data is being used in that graph by those little yellow check marks right there. Well, this one that I had just made, this guy right here, is using no data yet. That's why it's completely empty. And what I'm going to do is go over to my HIVE users, and I'm going to choose one field. I'm going to choose the field that says active. This isn't being used anywhere on this page yet, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. Not that I couldn't use it in more than one place. You absolutely could. But I'm going to choose active, and you'll notice that it gives me undefined, false, and true. And what I'm going to do is choose true. Now, what this is going to do is filter the entirety of the page. It's an automatic thing. Power BI is super smart about this. As soon as I take one visual on this page, these are all called visuals, each of these different sort of graphs. If I choose something in one of them, it'll affect, if it can, all of the other related visuals on that same page. Very little that I, as an end user, have to do for this. Now, this doesn't look super pretty, and it's covering up a bunch of stuff, so I'm going to change some aspect of this visual just a little bit. I'm going to change it so that this, top right corner, sometimes you get options about how this stuff works. Little drop down here, I'm going to choose, instead of using a list of available options, I'm going to choose a drop down of options. So it actually gives me a drop down here. And that way I can actually collapse this up a ways and make it a bit tighter. And I could change fonts about all this visualization stuff as well if I really wanted to. So I could say only show me those that are true, right? I could do that right now. I can also go into the formatting of this particular visual. So right here with that visual chosen, I can go and format that visual and choose some options here. Like for that slicer, that's what that's called, as a slicer again, I can force it to be single select. Only single selection, that's all it can ever be. And so it actually removes some of the other options there. Now as I drop this down, I can only choose one at a time. I can't choose both true and false and blank. It can just be one option. And I would just save my report with this being true. I would save it right now, and then every time I come to this particular page and I refresh my data after I've gotten the latest download, this will only ever show me new active users on this page. And I like to leave this little visual out there graphically to let me know that that's actually visual active users. Now, if you want to get a little more detailed here and you want to change like some of the formatting about this, what text types are actually being used, or you want to specify alternate text for different values, you could do that. You could change effects of like how the backgrounds work. Like there's all kinds of interesting things you can do with this, physical sizes and other advanced options and all kinds of things to control the graphics of these visuals. And that's kind of some of where the art of report writing comes from, is a lot of that control that you've got over the pretty picture that's seen and presented. In my case, I'm not going to get super picky about this. I'm just going to leave this little box out here. Maybe just so it looks like some of my other boxes, I might do something like the slicer itself. Where would it be here? General options, effects. Maybe I want to turn like a border, a visual border on, just like all the other items have, so that it looks sort of like the rest of the report out there. Maybe you want to do something like that. Maybe you want to choose the font heights of things, so maybe it's not the exact same as these guys, and I kind of want it to be. Maybe I could match that up a bit. But that's just all pretty picture stuff, right? You can go to any of these tabs, or if you wanted to have sort of a similar feel and look, you could jump to the very end over here. Let me go all the way to the very end. The template tab, I could right-click on this and duplicate this page so I have sort of a similar look and feel on all of my pages, and then build up a brand new report completely from scratch with whatever data it is you want to work with, whichever graphics and whatever data from the individual tabs that you want to know about. That's all there at your fingertips for you to kind of work with that. Okay? So we talked about gaining access just now, but I also talked about how to generate your own reporting at kind of the same time. So we just covered how to do your own reporting after hooking up a bunch of data from that template Power BI file and getting those downloads directly from the CTC software website. So with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you all for attending.